Sir Franco, nakamute tayo.
Yan. Good morning, Jambi, Sir Jello. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Hindi na ako sanay.
Good
Morning.
morning. Happy New
Second
Year.
New Year to all of us. Okay? So again, welcome teachers na sa ating session for today on our January series. So it's our second installment of our January series. No? And actually, personally, excited. No? Kasi for one, I'm very familiar yung ating speaker for today. Alam ni Sir Jello yun sa Xavier School.
Nakabahan ako eh.
Yes. We've been with her no for the longest time. Kaya she's been our mentor in Xavier School in terms of like our curriculum development. So whatever Xavier is now, kung ano man yung mga ginagawa namin sa Xavier School ngayon, is largely, hindi ko pwede sabihin na ano no, in a small way, in a large way, ay part yung speaker natin no, na Sir Jello. Alam mo Sir Jello, yung mga pinagdaanan namin sa Xavier for the last so many years.
So many years. Yeah.
Yeah, so many years na ng training, discussions, conversations. Yan. Okay. So yan, Sir Jambi and Sir Jello, no, for today, we're going to be having a discussion on one of the actually it's a one of the approaches in remote learning. So ginagamit talaga to specifically for remote learning. So yung approach na tinatawag natin na gradual release of responsibility. Okay. Ako kasi hindi masyadong familiar. So kaya that's why excited din ako. I think kayo ba may ano na rin ba kayo, may encounter na rin ba kayo with this strategy or first time din nating narinig to?
Ako, Sir Franco, actually, the first time that I encountered yung, gradual release of responsibility was mga 5 minutes ago. Sagot ako kasi parang, gradual release of responsibility. Pero you know what struck me? Parang sa unang tingin kasi, parang ang ironic nung title na No Learner Left Behind tapos biglang gradual release of responsibility. You would think na pag sinabing no learner left behind, yan yung tipong aakayin mo talaga, i-spoon feed mo talaga lahat ng kailangan nila. Pero excited ako sa i-present sa atin ni Miss Rita kasi in reality, ganun talaga dapat. Kung gusto mong tunay na matuto at tunay na hindi maiwanan yung learner, kailangan ultimately the time will come na he will be responsible for his own learning. Pero ang malalaman natin ngayon kung paano ba tong tong approach na ito. Ano ba yung steps, ano yung features nung approach na to. So very very excited.
Saka ano rin Sir Jambi, no? Syempre, yun din talaga yung like goal talaga ng remote or distance learning, yung independent learning. Kaya lang madaling sabihin, yung for example, sabihin natin, kaya naman natin i-release, kunyari, bigyan ng responsibility, i-train yung mga students natin, pero paano nga ba? Okay, so yan yung, tama Sir Jambi, no? Yan yung titin natin ngayon, yung how do we go about it? Okay, at ano yung mga kailangan tandaan, mga principles on developing this independence in our students, no? And eventually releasing that kind of responsibility so that they could stand on their own and they could actually manage their own learning. Okay? Diba, Sir Jello? Yan, mukhang tayo pa
Yes.
Happy New Year, Sir Jello.
Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Agree ako kay Sir Jambi, pero isa sa mga, kung si Sir Jambi mga 5 minutes, ako mga 10 minutes naman. Konti lang.
Doble yan, sir. Doble yan.
Doble lang. Ayan. Nung nakita ko ng title nito, Sir Franco, just to share, ang naisip ko agad is yung kasi I think Sir Franco and Sir Jambi knows naman na my son is also having his online. And we are, parang nando kami sa part na when do we let him be more independent? Although grade 1 pa lang siya, parang ito nung na-imagine ko nung kaya excited din ako to listen is kailan or paano kaya nung release of responsibility na kaya na niya pero in a way, hindi mo rin siya iniiwan. So parang letting go without leaving the learners behind. So
Yes.
I'm so excited to really learn. Kasi kumbaga, baka pwede kong i-apply na to sa aking anak sa
Totoo,
mga anak.
personally Sir Jamie Sir Jel, ako rin sa mga anak ko 'no, yun siguro Sir Jel 'no, yung sweet spot na yun. Kasi, marami naman talagang mga teachers pa rin natin nag-a-attempt of course 'no, to release responsibility to the students, to train them independently. Kaya lang nasaan yung sweet spot para hindi naman na ano, na in a way, naiiwan yung mga students to do on their, own everything without
Yeah,
like, yung prerequisite skills or knowledge, et cetera. So, yan yung tignan natin, nasaan yung sweet spot na yan para you can train them independently pero hindi naman sila nagpa-panic kasi mahirap din naman yun na yung policy ng, sink or swim na, ano or yung idea ng sink or
yeah,
swim, hayaan na lang natin sila to develop on their own, okay? So, hindi rin naman yung puwede 'no, kaya that's why, ang daming, anticipation nitong, talk natin for today. So, before we, introduce siguro our, speaker for today, I'll give some our usual no our usual reminders. Okay? Kasi Sir Jambi and Sir Jelen, I noticed lalo na from our last session last Saturday and even during our skills training series, madami po tayong mga bago no. Mga bagong viewers uh, na sa Kaagapay Teacher Support. Okay? Para lang ma-remind natin ang ating mga viewers. Okay? So again, for this session on No Learner Left Behind, Unit Design with Gradual Release of Responsibility, we'll be giving you an evaluation link at the end of the training or at the session. Okay, so before we end our broadcast later on, we'll be showing the evaluation link. Okay, the evaluation link will also be available on our page. Okay, but for those who are here viewing live, you will have the priority. No? So, syempre kayo yung mga unang makakapag-accomplish and therefore, you'll receive your certificates much earlier. Okay? Then after answering the evaluation, your certificates will be sent to you via email. Okay? So, wala po kayong pupuntahang Google Drive, websites. Okay? And again, no, sabi nga, last time, nagbibigay na naman ng reminder si Sir Jambi. Um, Careful din tayo dun sa mga nagsisend ng link that redirects you to other websites tapos humihingi ng bayad. Please do not click on those links. No?
Or for example, kahit hindi humihingi ng bayad but asks for your other pieces of information,
Yes,
ayan
correct.
na lang.
So, ang point lang siguro namin Sir Jam is that wag na po kayong lumabas dito kasi ito naman na po 'yun, okay?
Oo.
At, this will always be available naman on our channel, so you can go back to it, anytime 'no, whenever, necessary or you'd like, okay? So, again, laging libre ang, ano ng Kaagapay Teacher Support and we do not ask for, extra information aside from your email which you used to send your certificates to. Okay, so please take note of that. Okay, so that will be it, teachers. No, for our reminders for our webinar for today. Okay, so let's all enjoy the rest of the session. Okay, let us now have Sir Jello introduce our speaker for today. Um, it will be a short introduction because if we introduce her in a full length, we will have to take an entire webinar in itself. No, okay.
May
So go.
sariling webinar.
Yes, Sir Jambi.
Okay, so again, good morning, everyone. It is my honor to present our speaker for today. So, Ms. Rita Atienza is the director of the Ateneo Teacher Center and the coordinator for professional learning and teacher education of the Science and Art of Learning and Teaching, or SALT Institute at the Ateneo de Manila University. She is a faculty member of the education department at the same university. Aside from her works at the Ateneo, Mrs. Atienza is currently curriculum consultant to Xavier School and Assumption College San Lorenzo. She conducts professional development workshops for administrators and teachers around the country on various topics. As consultant and trainer of Authentic Education, a company founded by Understanding by Design co-proponent Grant Wiggins, she has participated in curriculum writing projects for Mississippi, Maryland, and Georgia in the US. So again, I think without further ado, okay, let's listen to our very esteemed speaker for today, Miss Rita. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning
Good
po.
morning.
Good morning, ma'am. No, ma'am, before we give you the floor, no, for our discussion for today, for our session, of course, would like to first welcome you to Kaagapay Teacher Support. Okay? And again, we're very lucky, and of course, no, sobrang saya kasi with all of your accomplishments, with all of course your busy schedule as well. Sobrang busy po ni Miss Rita, no. And I just at sobrang accommodating ni Miss Rita because we had a simple request, nagbaka sakali kami despite the sobrang busy schedule ni Miss Rita, and teachers, no, without like keeping me waiting or something like that, Miss Rita actually asked me, oh, what do we do at ano yung gagawin natin, anong kailangan ng mga teachers natin. Yun kagad yung tinanong niya sa akin. Hindi siya nagsabi kung na may mga schedules ako, something like that. But instead, ask already, ano yung kailangan ng mga teachers natin. Okay? So today, Ms. Rita, thank you so much for spending your time with us, no? Despite your busy schedule. So welcome po to Kaagapay Teacher Support. So
Thank
Ms. Rita,
Yeah.
siguro po, Ms. Rita, before po tayo mag-start, siguro po konting overview lang what our teachers will expect, will siguro get, no, from our discussion or presentation for today.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I know lahat tayo talagang busy as teachers. Yung work natin nagdoble, nagtriple compared to before. Yung preparation na ginagawa natin. So lahat tayo very busy. And yet, Kaagapay, the organizers have really tried to set aside time para yung tulungan lang. So I'm very honored to be invited and to be part of this effort. So thank you very much for inviting me. You also put a lot of pressure on me because you really built me up. So totoo lang, mga viewers, pag nakikita nila ako sa Xavier, sinasabi ata nila, ayan na si Mrs. Nosebleed.
Hindi naman, Miss Rita, no? Siyempre, pasensya lang talaga tayo, Miss Rita, sa Xavier na talagang nakakaano rin, no, overwhelming. Pero again, we are so thankful for guiding us all throughout kasi it's again, no, our relationship with Miss Rita runs for so many years. No? It's not like a 1-year consultancy. It's we built up. Miss Rita actually help us build up everything, no, from the ground up. Kung ano man, again, sabi ko nga, kung ano man yung meron kami ngayon sa Xavier, kung ano yung ginagawa namin sa Xavier School ngayon, are really, no, thankful to Miss Rita for all the guidance.
It's very easy to build on a already good foundation, right? So anyway, that's their work. Anyway, you were asking me for an overview. So yung napaka-interesting na nung discussion ninyo, actually gusto ko na sanang sumali. But it's about, no learner left behind. Kasi yun naman ang ultimate aim talaga ng teacher, no? One time, one of the bosses I've had said that, when I know na successful ako, pag hindi na ako kailangan ng estudyante ko at nagagawa na nila ng maigi yung mga aims ng course without my help. Then I will know, even if it's sad that they don't need me anymore, I will know that I was very successful. Kaya lang, hindi yon nangyayari sa lahat ng learner. So dapat, lalo na ngayon sa time ng pandemya at remote learning, wala sanang maiwan. So kailangan akayin, tulungan, hanggang bawat isang estudyante kaya na maging independent learner at ma-achieve yung mga goals ng course. So, mahirap yung bawat. Madali doon sa mga sinasabi nating matatalino, yung magaling sa pag-aaral, sa academics. Yun, madali, no? But we cannot say we're successful just based on them. Our success as teachers depends on percentage. So, lahat tayo may mga estudyante na talagang naging achiever na. Pero kung ang tanong ay magiging ilang percent ng estudyante natin ang naging successful, yun ang talagang I think measure ng pagiging effective na teacher. So how do we do that? Does that answer your question, Franco?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so yun na
Sir
po, no?
Franco, yeah.
Again, sana katulad po namin, na-excite na rin po tayong lahat no, sa discussion natin for today kasi ako excited na ako. So, Miss Rita, again, we'll not delay you anymore so that we could spend more time with your input for today. So, again, bago pa man po, maraming salamat po and
Thank you,
we
Dip.
can now start with our discussion. Thank you, Miss Rita.
Okay, so actually, in high school, not in high school. In my first years of teaching, I was a high school math teacher. So ngayon, nagtuturo na ako sa graduate level at the education department at Ateneo. But for a very long time, I was a teacher of math in the high school. And so I never heard of gradual release of responsibility kasi ang nakakaalam nitong teoryang ito ay ang mga English teacher. So tinuturo talaga ito sa kanila kung major in English teaching ka. I'm sure familiar na yung konsepto na ito sa inyo, gradual release of responsibility. But more and more, as I learned about this theory, it became obvious that dapat lahat ng subjects alam ito at ginagamit ito. Okay? And lalong-lalo na ngayon sa panahon na wala na ang mga estudyante sa face-to-face instruction sa harap natin, di natin agad sila maaalalayan, di natin agad makikita kung sino-sino ang mga nakakaintindi at kung sino-sino ang mga naiwan na, yung hindi na sila makakatch up. Next, please. So, why is it much harder to learn from home? Maraming dahilan. Una-una, maraming distraction. Okay? Dito sa bahay, pati yung apo ko, biglang nagtuturo ako tapos kung ano-anong hinihingi or ganon, no? Tapos, hindi naman very appropriate ang conditions natin. Wala tayong desk at good lighting. Often, we're under makeshift conditions. Pag technical topics, ang hirap ituro from afar. And there's such a thing for the online learners as screen fatigue. Madaming dahilan, but we will just focus on one. Next slide, please, Franco. And this is poor reading skills and poor comprehension, no? Imagine niyo itong text na to na maski good reader ka, it will take you time na sige, kailangan kong basahin ito. Instructions lang ng teacher, kailangan, you really have to brace, focus and concentrate and sasabihin mo sa sarili mo, sige, kailangan kong intindihin itong babasahin ko, ganyan, no? So, yun, kung good reader ka, mahirap yung laging ang dami-dami mong binabasa, lalo na on screen or in a learning packet, no? Pero ngayon, lahat ng input ng teacher, lahat ng activities, lahat ng assessments, ang karamihan ay dumadating sa estudyante at madedeliver sa estudyante via some kind of reading material. So you can imagine how a reader who is not a good reader or has poor comprehension could very easily give up or somehow tatapusin niya yung mga kailangan niyang gawin pero hindi talaga niya naiintindihan. Okay, so ganun na ang sitwasyon ngayon. And to be very honest, there are so many students who are not good readers. Next slide, please. So, ang nagiging solusyon ng mga teachers, ng mga schools ay kailangan natin turuan ang mga bata na maging independent learners. Okay, but mahirap gawin yan, matagal yan. Kailangan yan ituro sa mga estudyante. Ideally, from the home and then from the time they are grade 1. And there are things right now, ang tinuturo ng mga schools as far as independent learning is concerned are some study habits at saka mindset. Like, okay lang magkamali, basta mag-try ka ng mag-try hanggang makuha mo. Okay, that's very good. Study habits, next please, Franco, is also being taught. So for example, pwede ninyong turuan ang mga bata ng strategy na bago kayo humingi ng tulong sa mama ninyo, bago kayo humingi ng tulong sa akin, ask 3 before asking me. Okay? Number 1, brain. Kunyari, basahin mo ng basahin yung instructions. At pag-isipan mo ng maigi, ano ba ang hinihingi ng instructions? Okay. Number 2, tingnan ang board. Okay, ngayon walang blackboard. So tingnan ng maigi yung text. Underline mo yung words na hindi mo alam. Baka yun lang ang kailangan mong tanungin sa magulang mo, ano bang ibig sabihin nitong word lang na to? Kawawan man mama nung estudyante kung pupunta siya, mama, hindi ko maintindihan lahat ito. Di ba? Tapos number 3, body, no? Baka sakaling pwede kang mag-text, mag-chat, kapitbahay, tanungin lang, anong ginawa mo sa number 2? Ganyan. Okay. Bago pumunta sa mama, bago pumunta sa teacher, bago pumunta sa lola or lolo or guardian. Okay? So, yung study habits na to, okay lang to. Pero, meron ding GRR sa subject matter mismo. Okay? So, let's think about subject matter. Pwedeng ang naging reaction ng teachers ngayon sa paggawa ng unit ay dalian na lang natin para hindi sila mahirapan. Okay? Okay, fine. So what will happen there is yung estudyante parang nasa comfort zone lang siya. Mabuti yan, madadalian siya, pero hindi siya matututo. Wala siyang bagong matututunan. So comfort zone is a nice place to be, but nothing ever grows there. Hindi rin namang pwede, as Sir Franco said, sink or swim. So binigyan natin ng learning packet, tapos nandyan lahat ng instructions, nandyan yung assessment, gawin na lang nila, bahala na lang kayo. Next slide, please. Kasi ang mangyayari doon is, magiging in crisis naman yung mga bata. Kasi parang sinabi na lang natin, bahala na lang kayo, basta nandyan lahat yung instructions, basahin na lang ninyo. Okay? We know there's a need for teachers. We know it's not easy for robots to become the teachers in the future. Why? Because we still need to guide them. So, we cannot just give them the learning packet, no matter how well we think we tried to explain it, and leave them on their own. Okay? There is another zone, next slide please, that we can consider. And lahat tayo alam natin ito kasi sa college natin, sa edu major courses natin, ito yung tinatawag na zone of proximal development ni Vygotsky. Okay? So sa zone of proximal development, medyo out of your comfort zone, pero tutulungan ka ng teacher. So pwede sa beginning, kunyari yung first photo, nahirapan siya. Madami siyang mali. So, medyo dejected siya. So, sa second photo, di bale, basta practice ng practice kasi tinulungan ng teacher. Ito yung talk natin today. tinulungan ng teacher at sinabi ng teacher kung ano ang mga areas na kailangan niyang gawin para mas maintindihan na scaffold ng teacher. Okay, so more about that later. Until finally, magigets na nung bata, medyo, I think nakukuha ko na. And in the next picture, you will see na successful na yung bata. Okay? So this is the zone of proximal development. Give them something 1 or 2 levels harder than what they can currently do easily. Diba ganyan ang video game? O level 5, level 6, o namatay ka na sa level 6. Pero alam ng bata, itatry ko kasi level 7, kaya ko yan. Kasi kung ginawa ng video game level 6 tapos level 20 na agad, di ba, give up ka. So in a way, ang ginagawa natin ngayon, baka, and yun ang reflection ninyo, diretso ba kayo sa level 20? Diretso ba kayo sa crisis zone? Or meron ba kayong zone of proximal development sa pag-design ng lesson ninyo? Next slide, please. So this is a picture of a little girl learning how to ride a bike. Tinutulungan siya ng mama niya. Sigurado na baka hindi lang makita sa picture na to, may training wheels yung bike or baka katatanggal lang nila ng training wheels. So ito ang magandang analogy na kailangan lagi ninyong isipin. Sa isang question ni Sir Franco ata or Sir Jambi, in the beginning discussion, tinanong nila, paano? So ito ang magandang picture na kailangan natin laging tandaan. Ganito. Pero I will give you some steps, a framework, how to do it. But in the end, depende sa magulang yan. Alam ko na, si Sir Jello ata yung sa grade 1 niya, di ba? So may mga steps yan. At ang magulang, ang teacher, ang kailangan mag-notice, saan na siya, kaya na ba niya, time na ba to let go, etc. So kailangan din yon. Okay? So ang 3 words that summarize in a way gradual release of responsibility is show me, help me, let me. Let me alone. Let me do this alone. Okay? This is natural to us eh. Ganito ang baby or toddler pag gusto nang lumakad. Okay? Pinapanood niya ang mga adults. Tapos tinutulungan siya, binibigyan ng walker or hinahawakan nung nanay nung mga adults. Tapos gusto niya, little by little, magta-try siya, yung malapit lang. Yung alam niya, pwede agad siyang sumandal pag nahuhulog na siya, ganon. Yan ang show me, help me, let me. Next slide, please. And this is what is used in medical schools, law schools, and we don't want a doctor who didn't have a lot of help me portion in between, where he could try it out, be taught what is wrong with what he's doing, be told how to do it. Siyempre, ayoko pumunta sa doktor na binasa lang yung libro, nag-demo yung teacher, tapos sinabi ng teacher, sige, pag-opera ka na ng pasyente. Siyempre, hindi yon. So again, show me, help me, let me. Next slide, please. So instead of just giving them our packet, our give instructions, and then let them alone, students will read this and then they will get stuck. And what we're in effect doing, next slide please, is in the packet as teachers, we are defining, explaining, maybe we're showing them how to solve. And then, next, please click, we expect na kaya na nila. to define, explain, and solve. Tapos sa test, dinadagdagan pa natin ng interpret, describe, analyze. You know, when you look at it this way, parang, oo nga, no? Kawawa naman ang mga estudyante. Diba? Okay, next slide, please. So what happened there is, I do it, and then you do it now alone. So in the beginning, the teacher is responsible. So very big ang teacher responsibility. O sige, ituturo ko sa inyo ito. Kaya I took a long time sa pagsulat ng learning packet. Diba? Kasi yun ang responsibility ko sa inyo. So ito, ini-explain ko, nagbigay ako ng example, okay? Next, and then in the next triangle, ikaw na. But the gradual release of responsibility framework of Dog Fisher and Nancy Fry has several steps. So first, the teacher does it, and we call this stage the focus lesson. And then the next stage is we do it together. The teacher and the student does it together. That's guided instruction. The next stage is, sige nga, do it in groups. Kayo-kayo, magtulungan kayo. And the last stage is independent learning. Okay, now you try it alone. And syempre, kung hindi pa pala kaya ng estudyante sa independent learning, babalik ang teacher. Okay, next slide, please. But, okay, so I gave you this framework. Ang tendency lagi ng mga teacher, pag may framework, talagang sinusundan nila yan ng maigi. Pag binigyan ng lesson plan format, talagang susundan niyang maigi. Ganon tayo na training, di ba? But I would just like to point out that this is not prescriptive, meaning you don't have to do all the 4 exactly the way that I am going to explain now. Because, as I said, tulad nung picture nung nanay na tinutulungan yung anak niyang matuto magbike, madaming desisyon yon sa part ng parent. At kayo din bilang teacher, madami kayong kailangan kakapain if you feel your intuition has to play a part. Okay? At saka hindi siya very linear, hindi siya very sequential. Again, based on your judgment. And I will explain further as in the session. Yung prosesong ito pwedeng gawin sa isang lesson lang or sa isang buong unit. Okay? At yung huli, dinagdag ko because of COVID times. Okay? Ang question na kailangan ninyong isipin, and this is why I asked the Kaagapay organizers if I could talk on this topic, because I think that GRR is very important for self-learning modules, especially nowadays. Okay? Kasi mag-isa yung students hindi ginusto ng teacher, pero biglang naging independent learning situation na. So sa learning packet or sa online learning module, kailangan gawin yung 3 stages before the last one. Next, please. So for example, yung part ng collaborative, medyo mahirap yan ngayon. No? So pag-uusapan natin kung paano i-modify ang framework na to in time of COVID. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the first, we have 4 stages. Let's focus on the first stage. Next slide, please. So this is the part of the teacher. I do it. It's called the focus lesson. Next, please. And here, teacher does 4 things. Okay, one is to explain the purpose of the lesson. Okay, well, anyway, I'll explain this in a while. Next is to provide direct instruction. to model and demonstrate, to think aloud, okay? The modeling is what is important in this stage, all right? And on the part of the student, medyo passive pa, pero yung listening niya dapat active, dapat nag-iisip na siya. Ano ang questions ko? Ano ang hindi clear sa akin, right? That's why starts to comprehend, clarifies, and of course, super galing ang mga estudyante natin dito, takes notes. So this is what happens when it's face-to-face instruction. So face-to-face instruction muna ang pag-uusapan natin. Okay, next slide please. Okay, so the first one, explains purpose. Alam ko lahat ng learning packet ninyo, lahat ng online classes, those that are online, nakalagay ang objective of the lesson. But I would like to take time to discuss this a little bit. Okay, so Sir Franco, Sir Jello, you have seen these slides. So establishing purpose is very, very important, and it means pansinin naman ninyo yung objective na nakalagay dun sa learning packet ninyo. Hindi ibig sabihin na porke nandyan nakasulat yung objective, tapos na sinabi ko na sa kanila kung ano yung objective. This part is very important because you're telling the student, when you take time to explain, okay, sa lesson natin today, ito ang gagawin natin. You look at this webinar, almost 15 minutes, the hosts primed you, explained what the purpose of this webinar is. It's so valuable to put you in the right frame of mind and to engage you. You are a partner in the learning process. Pag-uusapan natin ito, matututo tayo together, right? Next, please. And that way, the students will learn, yun pala ang topic na yun pala ang gagawin natin. Ako, paano yan? Hate na hate ko word problems. So, kailangan matuto sila na, sige, but I want to learn this. Ito na yung chance ko matuto ng word problem. So, okay, ganito ang gagawin ko. Pag natatakot na ako, I will breathe deeply. I will read the problem 3 times. I will tell teacher na takot ako sa topic na to. So, kung ano man ang strategy nila para ma-approach nila yung topic. Kung alam nila yung topic, kunyari face-to-face, magre-raise sila ng hand. Teacher, how's that? Kung hindi ako, ganyan, di ba? So, yan ang importance ng really spending time to establish purpose. Next slide, please. So, we can call it learning purpose, we can call it learning targets, but it's so that the students know what are you going to learn today, di ba? Kung minsan umuwi yung mga bata, tinatanong ng magulang, anong natutunan mo today? Nag-read kami. Oh, yun lang ang alam niyang ginawa nila kasi hindi nila talagang naintindihan kung ano ang learning purpose. Okay? So, here are some examples. Next slide, please. So, kunyari daw, sabihin ninyo, and make it in student-friendly language, okay? I can identify and name the parts of the plant. Ito lang ang target ninyo, okay? Imagine ninyo ito sa learning packet ninyo. Explain the functions of the parts of a plant, okay? Tapos, ang suggestion ko, gumawa kayo ng checkbox, yung a box beside it where they can check it. Pag nagawa na nila, i-check nila. So you are teaching them to be focused on goals, on learning targets. You're teaching them to monitor where they are in the lesson. So pag may chance kayo, whether it's a chat, face-to-face chat, I know meron din naman kayong chat or i-text ninyo via the chat box. Sabihin ninyo, i-check ninyo pag nagawa na ninyo, pag kaya na ninyo. Kaya I can. Next example, please. Ito, isa lang ang learning target niya. I can summarize. Okay? Pero break down ng teacher in steps. Dito lang, sa pagka-breakdown niya ng learning purpose, sinasabi na niya sa mga estudyante na ito ang step by step lang. Ito lang ang aatupagin ninyo, iisa-isahin lang ninyo ito. So malaking tulong na yan. Kasi i-check nila, did I ask myself? What are the key details? And what is mostly being talked about? Did I? Oo, ginawa ko yan. Check. Kung hindi ko pa ginawa yan, sige, babasahin ko ulit. Kailangan kong bantayan ang key details. Ganyan. Dinefine pa ng teacher kung ano ang key details. What are they mostly telling me about? Diba? So, ano yung talagang lumitaw sa paragraph? Okay. Next, I wrote down preview there. So, I asked myself is just pag-iisip. Then, write down the main idea, ganyan, etc. Okay? So, i-check niya isa-isa. So, sa learning purpose pa lang, mas makakasunod na ang estudyante sa lesson. Yun ang buong idea ng gradual release. Ano ang mga gagawin natin para talagang makasunod ang estudyante, no learner left behind. Hinay-hinay lang para walang maiwan. Next slide, please. So, explains purpose. Let me just pause here for 30 seconds para mag-gather ninyo yung thoughts ninyo, no? Before I explain this, I'll wait for just 15 seconds. Be silent and assimilate ano so far ang mga thoughts ninyo. Okay, the next part is to provide now the direct instruction. And in focus lesson, it is the modeling via a think aloud that is very important. Ang idea dito is, hindi nyo basta pwedeng sabihin, kailangan ipaliwanag ng mabuti. Ang ibig sabihin ng ipapaliwanag ng mabuti is, pati yung thinking, okay, involved, kailangan malaman ng mga estudyante. Alright, so I will explain this further. Next slide, please. So here is a way of modeling or demonstrating. Okay, so let's say I'm going to give 23 times 13. Okay, imo-model ko ito sa mga bata. So the first step is name the strategy, skill, or task. Okay, so children, today we are going to multiply bigger numbers. 2-digit number times a 2-digit number. Okay, so you're naming what you're about to do, right? Next. And then you'll say, and I'm going to teach you a strategy where you don't need pencil and paper. And, well, you might need some pencil and paper, but minimal. Actually, pwede itong mental. At this is a way where you will break up the numbers into smaller numbers so that it's easy for you to multiply, okay? And that's why, and the purpose of this strategy is to make it easier for you to multiply even if you don't have pencil and paper, okay? Next. Next, please. Okay, so this is like, you give an analogy, okay? So you say, ang gagawin natin is i-break up natin yung malalaking numbers. Oh, ganyan lang yan para mas, kunyari daw, meron kayong big task. mahihirapan kayo, ma-overwhelm kayo, pero kung isipin ninyo, ano yung smaller tasks, mas kakayanin ninyo. So, yung strategy na matututunan natin ngayon, ganyan din, in a way, ang ginagawa natin. Okay, next please. So then you demonstrate how the skill, strategy, or task is completed. Okay? So, sinabi ko, i-break up natin. So, yung 13, iisip tayo ng number na madaling i-multiply. Siyempre, yung mga 5, 10, ganyan. Yung mga may 0, madaling i-multiply. So, yung 13, i-break up natin into 10 and 3. Okay? 13 equals 10 plus 3, di ba? Okay. So, madali na natin ma-multiply ang, next please, 23 times 10. Kasi 230 yan. 13 times 3, 23 times 3, 69. So, ang total niyan is 299. Okay? So pag minomodel mo, binabanggit mo din yung thinking, di ba? So, yung 13, yung part nung sinabi ko, 13. Paano natin ito ma-break up into two numbers na madaling, ano kaya yung pinakamadaling number na i-multiply? 10. Di ba? Ganyan. Ganyan ang think aloud. Modeling and thinking aloud. So next is, number 6, is tell the learners, sige, mag-ingat kayo ha, kasi tandaan ninyo, huwag kayong ma-confuse. Baka i-multiply ninyo 13 times 10 at 13 times 3. So, lahat ng possible misconceptions ng mga bata, i-explain din ninyo. Right? And the last step is how to check it. So, you will say, paano ko kaya malalaman na without pencil and paper, kung tama yung, kung medyo tama yung sagot ko. Kasi 13 is between 10 and 20, di ba? So yung 230 times 10 is 230. Yung 230 times 20 is 460. Dodoblehin ko yung 230, right? So dapat in between 230 and 460, dapat mas malapit sa 230. So I think tama to. Ganyan. Di ba? So, at least tinuro ninyo sa mga estudyante, does my answer make sense? I think yeah, kasi between 230 and 460, mas malapit sa 230. Yan, okay? So, ang importante dito sa example ko is, tinuturo ninyo sa estudyante yung thinking, hindi lang yung content. Okay, next slide please. So, importante na first person, okay? Ano kaya ang pwede kong, paano ko kaya ma-break up? Paano ko kaya ma-break up yung 13? Ganyan, okay? So, first, use the first person. Sa pag-explain mo, iisipin mo kung ano ang kailangan malaman ng novice, meaning yung walang masyadong alam sa strategy, okay? Paano ko ito i-explain sa taong wala pang alam sa strategy na to? And the third bullet point says, but share the insights of an expert. So, alam mo ang usual misconceptions ng students, so uunahan mo na, i-explain mo, pero wag mong kalimutan na yung part na to, mag-ingat kayo, don't be careless, etc. Okay, and the last bullet point there says, name your thinking. Okay, next slide please. Paano kaya sa learning packet? Kasi hindi ninyo kausap ang mga bata. So, ang suggestion ko is take pictures step by step of what you're going to do. So, yung bawat rectangle dito, pwedeng isang picture. And annotate it. Annotate, ibig sabihin, yung think aloud ninyo, isulat ninyo sa ibang box. And that's what I did on the right side with an arrow. So, kunyari daw, nilagay ko dyan, let us split 13 into two addends that are easy to multiply. Nakakita na ako ng learning packet na ang ginamit niya, gumawa siya ng avatar ng sarili niya at yun ang nilagay niya, tapos gumawa siya ng thought bubble. Ano kaya ang dalawang number na mapipili ko para madaling something like that. Okay? So you can see here that this is my suggestion for you to do it in a learning packet. All right, next slide, please. So this is phase 1. Okay, this is a summary. The teacher is supposed to explain the purpose and then model it. Do a think aloud. Okay, and the student is actively listening. In the case of remote learning, actively reading. Okay, but on top, the title of the slide says noticing. Okay? In face-to-face instruction, the teacher has to notice, right? Kagaya nung nanay. Alam niya kung yung sa bike, yung example natin na learning how to bike. Alam niya kung, oops, no, malapit na tumahulog, Pero paano yan? Remotely. Wala kayo dun. What are the ways? I will throw this question to you first. And maybe this is where we can stop for a quick Q&A break. Maybe we can start with this question. What are your suggestions?
Thank you, Miss Rita, for first 45 minutes pa lang, punong-puno na kagad ng. At Miss Rita, I hope that you already see also the comments of our audience, very engaging din yung live chat natin. Madami mga input ng teachers natin. So, teachers, do let us know. Sir Jambi will be reading and facilitating our Q&A for
Yes.
this. Okay. Go ahead, Sir Jambi.
Ayan. So, again, dear teachers, pause po muna tayo sandali, perhaps to help us digest yung mga na-share sa atin ni Ms. Rita so far. And this is also your chance to ask your questions. Baka may naitanong na kayo kanina sa chat, paki-resurface na lang kasi malamang sa malamang natabunan na yan. So, resurface nyo lang po para maibigay po natin. Ayan, at nag-highlight naman po yung ating tech director, Miss Rita. Ayan, please comment on this po. Ayan, the problem daw po is per week ang module distribution and there are learners who are not able to submit on time. There are even times when they submit 3 weeks later. So how do we deal with that po kaya?
I think it's hard for me to give a specific solution kasi hindi ko alam ang ibang conditions, no? Kaya kailangan talagang may professional conversation about this. If you can talk to fellow teachers who have the same problem, maybe you can come up with a solution. If not, you'll have to come up with a solution on your own. So, ang baka kailangan baka kulang ang scaffolding, ang gradual release. Baka maybe the purpose can be broken up so that the students can follow. Maybe when I explain the next stage, you can maybe add more of the guided instruction para makasunod yung estudyante kung yun ang problema. Kung ang problema is home conditions, etc., then baka a chat with the parent is in order or something like that. I saw somebody who gave a nice solution, Creative Nation, but it disappeared from my screen because it moved. It's about
do regular temperature checks.
Yes.
With validate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are other suggestions already coming up. Willa says something, encourage students to not hesitate asking questions. Uh, and the chat is very powerful eh. Pero kailangan, and I hope yung session natin today will give you some ideas of things that you really need to check on the chat.
Correct. Here's another question po, Miss Rita. What shall I do with my students who cannot be contacted through cell phone or messenger? I need to talk to them about their problem with their studies.
I don't know, how do you contact them? Can you make an appointment with them? Pwede ba yan? Like, sila lang will either call you or text you, and or hindi pwede. Or make appointment na lang sa barangay.
Correct. And I think po, ma'am, there are schools who practice yung home visits.
Yun. So actually Sir Jambi and Mr. Siguro it entirely depends on the setup of the school, on what information they have access to. Pero yun nga, sabi nga ni Miss Rita kanina, is that important siguro para mas may access tayo, wag po tayo mag-limit lang sa, for example, messenger and cellphones kasi, messenger, kasi nakadepende yan sa internet. Okay? So mas maganda pa rin yung katulad ng sabi ni Miss Rita, may access tayo dun sa mga communication, like for example, text, kasi yan yung pinaka accessible. Okay? Kasi kahit wala kang internet connection, pwede ka mag-text sa student. So sana po, we can find ways as according to Miss Rita, we'll have to just establish ways to communicate with them.
Okay. AHA Learning Center has a radio show, I think every Saturday, but I think a daily one for students. But anyway, meron silang ginawang system using emojis to do their temperature check. So that's one way. There are so many good suggestions, by the way, coming up in the comments, no? And
Yes,
a lot of them are so helpful.
correct. In fact, that is a feature na po of the webinars of Kaagapay Teacher
Ang
Support.
galing!
It's as if you're attending two webinars. One that happens in the screen,
Yes!
another one in the chat group. Sila na rin po yung sumasagot ng mga tanong nila.
At actually, mas eksperto sila eh. Kasi on the ground sila.
Yes, correct. So may mga tanong pa po ba tayo, dear teachers? And perhaps we can accommodate one more, and then we can allow Ms. Rita to continue her presentation. How to tackle the issue of ADD during online classes, ma'am?
I think you might have to, there are measures for ADD that are recommended by behavioral and occupational therapists, like highlighting certain statements para mag-stand out siya sa students. Let's say, putting less text and bigger font, things like that. But I think there are differences in the way that the ADD manifests itself. The other thing is, in a way now, all students have ADD because maski tayo, ang hirap talagang nakaupo lang. Wala kang nakikitang teacher. At least kung may teacher, maski nakaupo ka ng 50 minutes or 40 minutes, nakakaaliw yung teacher, right? At saka pinapanood mo yung katabi mo, etc. In a way, we all have ADD. So here is the thing that all of us have to do. Make sure the text we give the students is very short.
Okay, thank you for that.
I-chop up yung text into short parts with a question right away after. That doesn't need to be submitted, just to help them think.
Okay, thank you for that tip, Miss Rita. Again, dear teachers, worry not, because at the end of the presentation of Miss Rita, we will again open the floor for your questions and even your suggestions. So at this point, we will allow Miss Rita to continue her presentation. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes. You know, I just saw one about what if there are students who really are too lazy to do their responsibilities, and there will be. But at least we can say it's not because they gave up, because we didn't scaffold. So at least if we try and use gradual release of responsibility, we can say we really tried everything at ayaw pa rin niya. Kasi baka naman too lazy lang siya kasi alam niya ang hirap, hindi talaga ako laging nakakahabol, no? So, maybe GRR will help them little by little. It would take time, though, for them to realize that, hey, teacher is now trying to scaffold the learning. Okay, so we go to the next phase, and this is the guided instruction phase. Next slide, please. There. Okay, so we already talked about focused instruction. I do it, teacher. And you can see in the triangle that in focused instruction, the teacher responsibility is still heavy. In we do it, medyo na-share na yung responsibility. So the teacher has some responsibility, but in the triangle on the right, which signifies student responsibility, the students already are sharing some of that responsibility. So in guided instruction, the teacher provides interactive instruction through checks, prompts, and cues, and works with the students, again, through the checks, prompts, and cues, and provides necessary guidance as needed. On the part of the student now has to start doing with the guidance of the teacher. So the student starts to ask and respond to questions and respond to tasks. In other words, do the tasks assigned by the teacher, and works with teacher and classmates. Again, this is during face-to-face instruction. Okay, next slide, please. So remember, this part especially is the one that fits this photo of the mother guiding the child to become to bike on their own. Okay, next slide, please. This is another picture that I decided to put here because this is really the part of the lesson where we scaffold the learning. Okay, so scaffolding, like in a building, guided instruction is where we scaffold the learning. One way we do it is by graphic organizers. Okay, so I'm sure you already do this in your lessons. Okay, I'm not saying you don't do it, but I'm just giving an example of these things within the GRR framework so that you know that, no, we cannot skip this part. And you start to think of this as, no, this is the part where I'm still guiding the student. So you know what this graphic organizer is for. Because many teachers use graphic organizers kasi para sabihin ng mga bata na interesting naman yung lesson niya, hindi masyadong boring, ganyan. No, that's not the reason to use, not the primary reason, at least, to use graphic organizers. You are using graphic organizers like this concept map to scaffold the thinking. Okay? So, tingnan ninyo kung text lang about plants or trees versus text plus graphic organizer like this. Na pwede, so here's the scaffolding. Kung sa palagay ninyo, poor comprehension ang karamihan ng students ninyo, ibigay na lang ninyo ito. Kayo na ang mag-fill up. Okay? Tapos, magdagdag na lang kayo ng isa o dalawang question about the text, and you can say, look at the text and look at the diagram para masagot nila yon. kung ang feeling ninyo, kaya ng estudyante gumawa nito, then pwede ninyong i-blank. But you can leave clues if you like. Like, you can put trees are the source of, and then leave oxygen blank, leave wood blank, leave is important too and is used to make there, and then put maybe in your first box for oxygen, put needed by all living things to breathe. Para alam nila na, oxygen yon. And then, things like that. So, ganyan ang scaffolding. So, concept map is not, you use concept maps, but many of you just use it. It's needed for guided instruction and formative assessment. Ito ang magaling na formative assessment, meaning not graded, but the meaning of formative assessment is it will give me information if the students already are starting to understand. Okay, next slide, please. Here is another example of a graphic organizer, this time for math, and the lesson is on perimeter. So you can put 4 objects, 4 drawings, and they will fill, you can give an example for row 1. The side 1 is 10 inches, side 2, 3, 4, and then perimeter. For your example, you can put 10 plus equals para alam nila, matandaan nila yung formula, and then you can leave them to do the others on their own. Again, remember, this is scaffolding as well as formative assessment because you have to keep noticing ano ang mga misconceptions nila, ano yung part na madaming hindi nakaintindi, no? And so on. Next slide, please. Another way to do guided instruction is called visible thinking routines. Visible thinking routines are some routines that came from the Harvard Project Zero laboratory, spearheaded by Ron Richards and Mark Church. And they are very easy to use, but very powerful. So for example, this visible thinking routine is called I used to think, but now I think. Please go back, Sir Franco, thank you. And this I used to think, but now I think is a synthesis visible thinking routine. So you are maybe periodically every one day to at the end of one lesson or 2, 3 lessons, you will keep asking them, I used to think, meaning ito yung mga akala ko dati na, but now I think na correct na. Ito yung mga natutunan ko na. Okay? That's one visible thinking routine. Okay? So this is also good for guided instruction because you're helping them summarize and synthesize everything that they've learned without telling them, make a synthesis of what you've learned. Syempre, hindi nila kaya yan. Okay, so guided instruction. Next slide, please. Another way to do guided instruction is via what we call anchor charts. In face-to-face instruction, these are charts that we put around the room. We have to make them together with the students. Okay? So, kunyari, story elements. Oh, what is a character? So, i-elicit ninyo yung definition sa mga estudyante, tapos isusulat sa chart. Tapos, who are the characters in the story? Ben and Max. So, drawing ng teacher. You know, I think I cannot be a grade school teacher because I really draw so poorly. Maski yung stick figure ko, hindi siguro ninyo malalaman kung ano yung, ano kung lalaki ba yun, babae, kung whatever, okay? So anyway, here. So you make an anchor chart and you leave it posted in the classroom so that whenever they have English subject, titingnan lang nila yung anchor chart at alam na nila, yun na yung tulong nila, yun na yung scaffolding nila para masagot nila yung question or bawat bagong kwento, Okay, let's look at our anchor chart and ganyan. So natututo sila hanggang mamaya makikita ninyo, hindi na nila tinitingnan yung anchor chart kasi nandun na sa brain nila yung colors, yung drawing, yung definition, no? Kasi gamit na. Okay, on the left side, it's cubes, problem-solving strategy for math. Circle all the numbers, underline the question. How many fruits in total did Aling Nena buy? Underline. Box the words that are keywords. In total, box. Okay? Eliminate, etc. Okay? So, anchor charts. Now we are in remote learning. You have to provide the anchor chart in your learning packet. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay, so in guided instruction, and this might be a problem because as was brought up in the talk, kung magsasubmit yung ibang estudyante 3 weeks later, mahirap, no? Pero all the more, maski hindi natin magawa, as well as we do it in face-to-face instruction, at least we're conscious na guided instruction phase, kailangan tulungan, kailangan ko i-diagnose. So that's why I have a picture of a doctor there. You are like diagnosing. What else do I need to reinforce? What other scaffolding do I need? So in the picture on the left, it's a math task. Draw a clock and draw the hands for 4:30. Oh, so ito yung drawing ng bata. Ayan yung hands niya. So, anong gagawin natin, di ba? Paano tayo mag-guide dito? At least dito klaro kung sa batang ito, and you might have several with similar mistakes. So, kung kakayanin, magdagdag kayo ng isang page sa learning packet ng, let's say, 5 yung estudyante na pareho yung mistakes. Magdagdag kayo ng isang page sa learning packet nung 5 estudyante na yon na medyo i-address ninyo ang problema na nakikita ninyo, yung common problem. Again, it might be very stressful on the teacher's part. We need to also take care of ourselves hanggat kakayanin lamang. Right. Next slide, please. So in guided instruction, the teacher also asks questions that uncover errors and misconceptions. So this is the very idea behind formative assessment. So what you can tell them is, kunyari, 18 plus 51, 69, and then you give them an exercise. What makes you say that? Explain how you got that solution. Okay? What makes you say that is another visible thinking routine of Ron Richard and Mark Church. Imagine how powerful this question is. You can just keep asking this question in any subject. I'm talking about face-to-face instruction. And you are going to get into the higher order thinking kasi ini-explain nila yung thinking nila, ina-analyze nila aloud or in writing. Okay? But what you're really after is, what does the answer of the student tell me about what the student already knows and doesn't know? So kung sabihin ninyo sa student, what makes you say that 18 plus 51 equals 69? Ang estudyanteng ito nagbigay ng 2 ways. Okay, the word problem is about Emma. Emma maybe had 18 whatever toys and whatever, okay? Ang estudyanteng ito, yung explanation niya, 2 ibang strategy. So you know this student learned. And even you as a teacher, you'll feel good. Oh, talagang natutunan ng estudyante. So alam niyo yung student na ito, pwede na siyang with minimal guidance. Next slide, please. Okay, yung estudyanteng ito, nagbigay ng, can we go back? Sorry. Nagbigay ng dalawang prompt, ng dalawang reason. Siguro kinopya niya yung katabi niya, dalawang reason. Okay. Pero yung first one niya, sum is 71. Yung second one niya, sum is 69. Paano niya nalaman na 69 sa taas? Okay, so this student has a problem, but more or less, you can see the student knows the strategy. Careless lang yung student. Okay, next slide, please. So, in face-to-face instruction, we can use prompts. Okay, so if the student, there are 4 kinds of prompts: background knowledge, like remember, we talked about 3 states of matter. Remember, solid. Tapos, ano pa yung dalawa? Ganyan. Ganyan ang prompt ng background knowledge. Process or procedure is, let's say the student is making an error in order of operations. You can say, ano ulit yung acronym natin? Ano for, di ba, PEM, susundan, ganon. So, yan yung prompt na process or procedure. There are reflective prompts like, okay, everyone, you're forgetting what is our learning purpose today. Let's think back. Did we achieve it? Etc. Okay, then the last kind of prompt can be heuristic. Okay, what can you do when you are stuck? So, sa math, pag hindi ninyo alam ang sagot, anong gagawin natin? And then you can point to the anchor chart of cubes, underline the question, etc. So those are prompts. Next slide, please. So maybe for this boy who wants to make 10 or 20 or 30, he added 2, 18 plus 2. Pero hindi niya kinuha yung 2 sa 51. Inad lang niya yung 2. So, pinalitan niya yung problem, no? So, ito, ipaprompt lang yung student. Wait. Where did you get the 2? I got the 2 from 51. So, 49 na lang yung matitira. So, 18 plus 2 is 20. 49 na lang ang natira. So, 69, di ba? So, prompt mo. So, where did you get the 2? Yun yung prompt. Okay? Next slide, please. You can also cue. Cue is more direct. These are for students that need more help. That's why the last row there is use the anchor chart. So you can say to the student, tingnan lahat, tumingin lahat sa anchor chart natin. And it's in the environment, you're really providing clues. For remote learning, you might need a lot of environmental clues. Okay? In face-to-face instruction, it can just be visual clues like, okay, everyone's making mistakes. Go back to page 85, check the definition. Okay? Or verbal. Be careful not to add it 2 times. Or gestural. I had a student before who was malapit na talagang bumagsak sa math class. Talagang ang dami ng chance na binigay namin. So talagang sinabi ko sa kanya, alam mo, last chance mo na, kailangan pumasa sa test na to, ha? Tapos nung naglilibot ako, ang dami pa rin yung mali. So talagang pinupoint ko na sa desk niya kung saan mismo yung mali niya. Wala akong sinasabi kasi test na. Pero talagang pinoint out ko na eh. Pointing can help. Dito ang mali mo, dito. Ganyan. All right, next slide, please. So for this one, you can just point and tell the student as a cue, bakit dalawa yung sagot mo? 69 at 71. Ano ba talaga dyan yung sagot? All right? Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the things that happen in guided instruction. And now, again, maybe I'll pause for 15, 20 seconds and you can comment. How will you do guided instruction remotely? Magaling na tayo sa guided instruction strategies. That's one thing I can say. Our public and private school teachers are very good in the guided instruction strategies, but what happens is they forget that those are for guided instruction, and they just think of it as clever gimmicks or nice things for the students to do, and some teachers even think of it as time fillers. Paano yan? Tapos na lesson in 20 minutes, alam ko, bibigyan ko sila ng worksheet and then put a graphic organizer, all right? Okay. So, yes, what makes you say that is appropriate. Thank you, Ms. Willa. Please continue to add your suggestions there. But you, as teachers now in remote instruction, this is the challenge I pose to you. To what extent can we do this remotely? We cannot do it the way we would do it in face-to-face. But let's be creative. You are also creative. How can I do this remotely? To the extent hanggang kakayanin. Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So remember, we are in COVID time. So as I pointed out earlier, the next phase, collaborative learning, is very, very hard. In some cases, impossible to do. Swerte na lang ninyo kung meron kayong good online system, kung lahat ng estudyante ay may internet, pwede kayong mag-breakout room. And I suggest you do that. For the majority, it's impossible. But anyway, I will quickly talk about collaborative learning. Next slide, please. And I would just, so for some of you, this is just information to reserve for the time that we are all looking forward to. Libre naman managinip. Sana makabalik na tayo sa face-to-face instruction. And sana we can hug our friends and family without being scared. And we can go shopping without being scared. But until that time, this is just to reserve information. What I'd like to say about collaborative work is let's make the distinction between basic group work and productive group work, okay? So the left side, light orange, is basic group work. The right side is about productive group work, okay? So as far as interaction, the first white circle in the middle, how do the students interact? In basic group work, the students are just sharing their ideas and clarifying their ideas and insights, beliefs, okay? In productive group work, consolidation of understanding. So may konting debate na yan. You can say for productive group work, come to a consensus. Mag-agree kayo sa sagot. Kailangan kumbinsido lahat ang members sa tamang sagot ng tanong na ito. Okay? So, what kinds of questions need productive group work? What kind of questions need basic group work? All right. As far as accountable talk, the second white circle, accountable talk means what is my participation? Okay? In basic group work, basta mag-share lang, even if you don't have the solution. So the goal is not to solve something. The goal is just to share. So ang mga tipong questions sa basic group work is, what do you think of? Or share some ideas about. Okay? Sa productive group work, kailangang mag-identify sila ng solution sa isang problem, or maybe some common action na ito ang magandang gawin ng responsible teenager to help in cleaning carbon pollution, ganon. Okay, carbon gases, ganyan. So yan ang productive group work. And the last, accountability, walang accountability ang each member, okay? You're not invested as a member in, hindi, kailangan natin isolve ito, okay? Whereas in the right, most productive group work, you must get each member to feel that, your group will only come up with a good solution if each of you is invested. Talagang kailangan ninyong hanapan ng solusyon ang problemang ito. Okay? So that's the difference. And I hope this solves the problem, because sometimes we talk about ano ba talaga ang gagawin sa group work. Okay? And hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin basta na, ay, kailangan may accountability lagi, kailangan higher level thinking. No, think of it as, there are times that you just want them to share their ideas. You might have a student who's very shy. He will just listen. He didn't participate. Wag naman bigyan ng failing grade. Okay? Maybe as a teacher, you can say, ikaw, how about you, Marco? Anong idea mo? Agree ka ba sa kanya? Ganyan. Okay? Things like that. So, difference between basic group work and productive group work. Now, when you have performance tasks, dapat productive group work na yan. Okay? Next slide, please. So that is the third phase, collaborative learning. We do it. Please click Sir Franco. They do it together, okay? And in this phase, you are going to see if they can help each other. So, posibleng meron pang bata na hindi pa kaya on his own, but wala na si teacher, tutulungan siya ng mga kaklase niya. And this is very helpful because the child will learn to ask for help from peers, right? So now we get to the last one, independent learning. You do it alone. And this is what we're aiming for all this time. You can see that in this fourth phase, most of the responsibility is already in the student. So under the second triangle, student responsibility, nasa base na tayo. So bigger ang responsibility ng student. Pero nandyan pa rin si teacher. The teacher is never totally not there, right? Yan ang pinakamalaking hamon sa atin ngayon eh. In remote learning, we are not there. Hindi natin ginusto, but we are not there. So kailangan tayong gumawa ng lahat ng makakayang paraan, hindi lang sa emotional support, which is very important, but within the unit design. And that was what my talk today hoped to achieve. Next slide, please. So I will just read and explain a very beautiful quotation from Fisher and Fry about independent learning. A common misconception about independent learning is that the ultimate goal is the student can replicate what has been taught. In fact, ang nangyayari is yung summative exam natin, summative assessment natin, halos pareho sa mga worksheet, may ganito. No? Yung formative assessment natin, practice test para sa summative assessment. We have to remember that what we're trying to do is to teach the thinking behind the skill so that they can do performance tasks, performance assessment. Yun yung idea ng performance assessment. It's a new kind of assessment where they will need to apply the skills and the knowledge that we taught them in a new way, right? But new way doesn't mean hindi natin sila na GRR, na scaffold sa analysis. Hindi natin tinuro yung analysis, pero papa-analyze natin. Pero tinuro ko naman yung content about plants. Hindi mo naman in-scaffold yung analysis part. So yun yung ibig sabihin ng independent learning. We get them to do a higher order thinking, but we scaffolded them towards it. Okay? So let me continue to read. But independent learning is far more complex than that. The process of figuring things out, which begins in stage 1, focused instruction, focused lesson, continues. So even if it's independent learning, natututo pa rin yung student sa phase na to. Okay? Parang yung mga nagmasters na dyan na doing a thesis or a big thesis for undergraduate, or let's say some of you had to do your reports, presentations for practicum teaching, capstone. Many times, di ba, ang feeling natin, sandali, ba't ngayon ko lang biglang na-gets lahat yung natutunan ko sa 4 years? Parang ngayon ko lang lahat nare-realize. Kasi independent learning is still a time for learning, not just for practicing what was taught. Okay? So it says here, struggle is essential for learning. Expecting that students should somehow be perfect by the time they reach independent learning isn't setting the bar high enough. So ang ibig sabihin dito is, hindi yung perfect na makokopya nila yung ginawa natin sa stage 1. Hindi yon. Next slide, next please. The process of learning from mistakes continues during independent learning. So this quotation is saying na maski independent learning na, pwede pa rin magkamali. So it doesn't mean that you cannot let students into this phase or this stage until perfect na sila, kasi hindi mangyayari yon. Kaya laging nandun pa rin yung teacher. The teacher responsibility is less, but still there. So in the 4th phase, the teacher is still always checking for understanding and giving feedback. But the student is now practicing and deepening understanding on his own, undergoing productive struggle on his own, practicing metacognition and self-regulation on his own. Okay? I remember yesterday, kasi hanggang ngayon, pag nagpapadeliver ako sa Grab, naguguluhan ako, low-tech ako so sa telepono ko, laging naguguluhan ako. And I always ask my daughter, siguro nainis na siya sa akin. So sabi ko, Bea, hindi pa ako nakabigay ng tip sa driver. Saan ko hahanapin? 4 na beses na ata niya sinabi sa akin, 'di ba? So sabi niya, "Ma'am, marami diyang makiklik. I-play mo, maglaro ka na lang kung i-click-click mo hanggang mahanap mo. Kung talagang hindi mo mahanap, tutulungan kita." So sabi ko, sandali lang. Nakinig ba siya sa webinar ko? Na hindi ko pa naman ito na bago itong webinar. So hindi siguro, but at the same time, I think she was trying to help me. I can learn independently the phone things, but I was just trying to be dependent on her. So this is it. Learning still goes on, but I have the skills to do it on my own. So that's what this stage is about. Next, please. All right. So what you need to identify before stressing independent learning, taking a student into independent learning is, do students have the ability to learn? Which means they can think about their thinking and they can act upon their learning. Act upon learning means, anong gagawin mo kung hindi mo na alam ang next step? That's it. So independent learning is partly teaching the students to be learners even beyond school. Okay, lifelong learners. All right, next please. So always ask them. These are phrases that you can always tell them. Put it in a big, like sa dulo ng learning packet, pwedeng maglagay kayo lagi ng box na may isang statement or dalawa. What am I trying to accomplish it? Did I accomplish it? Look at your lesson purpose and check the box if you accomplish it. Mga ganyan. Those are things that can really make them independent learners, even for subject matter they don't know very well or that they have to learn on their own. Right? Next slide, please. Self-regulation is also important. And this is very important. Time management, task prioritization, calibration, okay, about their progress towards the lesson purpose or their own personal goals. Next slide, please. So these are the 4 phases. This is my last slide. And again, ang hamon ko sa inyo, paano ko ito best maa-apply in the time of COVID? Hindi kagaya nung kapitbahay ko na teacher din sa school na same school. Iba yung kaya niya, iba yung kaya ko. Iba yung estudyante niya, iba yung estudyante ko. We can help each other, we can collaborate, but still, you have to make some decisions on your own. Okay? I end with this very, very short anecdote. I was watching my grandson, may guitar lesson siya kahapon online. Apparently, magkakaroon sila ng test at yung kahapon na lesson, review. In the end, sinabi ng teacher, of course, madali ito kasi one-on-one. Pero sinabi ng teacher, Max, you are ready for the exam next week. Okay? So, ang dapat natin isipin is, actually, kaya ko ito alam, is ito yung isang kasalanan ko. Nung teacher pa ako, high school math teacher long ago. Sasabihin ko lagi, alam mo, in-explain ko na yan 3 beses, may drawing pa, may example pa, dinalian ko na, dapat ready na sila sa exam. Instead of asking, dapat ready na sila sa exam, pwede ba nating sabihin, ready ang mga estudyante ko para sa exam? And that's what we mean by no learner left behind, using gradual release of responsibility. So I guess we have to change it a little bit for the pandemic. Sana ang maabot natin is ready ang mga estudyante ko para sa exam hanggat makakaya niya at ako during COVID times. So that's it. I hope this talk helps you at least to start thinking about gradual release of responsibility.
Thank you so much, Miss Rita. So, Sir Jambi, bago lang siguro tayo pumasok ulit sa Miss Rita, we hope they don't mind that we can still spend some time to entertain questions and also insights, no? Punong-puno po ng insights yung
Grabe.
ating chat box, yung ating live chat right now. Pero gusto ko lang po i-remind yung mga teachers natin about this. We have been showing it earlier. Miss Rita has a program called Radyo Turuguro. Okay? It's actually a very sobrang interesting program because it covers a lot of subject areas. Okay? Actually, all subject areas, Miss Rita, if I'm not mistaken po, no?
Yes, Monday English, Tuesday Math, Wednesday Filipino, Thursday Science, and Friday is miscellaneous topics, including teacher self-care.
Wow.
So,
Hindi
sobrang,
ako ang host sa lahat ng days na yun. Iba-iba yung hosts.
si Miss Rita and also a colleague from Xavier School handles mathematics.
Yes,
Yes,
with me.
program. Yes po. So
On
teachers, no,
Tuesdays.
teachers natin, sobrang ganda po itong program to. Please join Tribe FB group for updates para you're updated with their time slots, with their programs, ano yung mga topics, etc. So please,
Wait lang. A-add ko na.
yes. Add mo na yan. Add na kagad teachers.
Add na
Yeah.
yan.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, so, Sir Jambi, siguro we can now get some questions and from our audience or insights. Okay.
Ayan. Sana po huwag kayong malungkot kung sakasakaling hindi po natin ma-feature yung inyong question or insights, pero trust me, marami po kabilang kami nila Sir Franco. Natututo kami sa mga sinishare ninyo na experiences, insights, applications ng mga itinuturo ni Miss Rita. So, thank you. May mga tanong pa po ba tayo? Ayan. Pwede rin kasi tayo magtanong, Sir Franco and Sir Angelo.
Ako naman, Sir Jambi, no, gusto ko lang mag-react dun sa isa sa for me, no, is pinaka-importanting aspect ng independent learning na banggit ni Miss Rita kanina, na hindi basta-basta nawawala si teacher. Kasi yun yung isa sa mga biggest misconception ng independent learning, na pag dumating na sila sa independent learning phase, mawawala si teacher. Okay? At nandun pa rin nakita natin kanina, ang ganda nung triangle visualization ni Miss Rita, kasi kitang-kita mo talaga yung progression ng lesser role ni teacher pero hindi nawawala. Okay? So, lesser
Yes,
role
that's,
pero hindi nawawala.
Fisher and Price framework.
Yes, opo. Kasi rin Miss, no, yung rin, siguro emphasize ko rin na kahit nagle-less yung role natin, hindi siya, it doesn't mean it's less. It's actually, nag-iba lang yung role, pero yung intensity, no, for example, pagdating doon sa dulo, yung evaluation, spotting errors, kaya redirecting students, it's actually an even harder, no, pagdating dun sa mas higher yung task natin dun sa dulo. At siguro, yung isa pa sa mga reminder ni Miss Rita kanina that I'd like to also emphasize that even at independent learning phase, our students are still susceptible to errors. Mag-error pa rin po sila. And sobrang appreciate ko yung learning with struggles or with
Struggle is
mistakes.
essential for
Maski
learning.
tayo, di ba? Ngayon,
Yes.
nangangapa tayo lahat.
Although, I think that our teachers should also learn from that, no? Lalo na as we shifted to distance learning, kasi marami sa mga teachers natin are na down dahil hindi or sometimes nahihirapang humabol sa technology. Sabi nga ni Miss Rita kanina, no, yung example, yung paggamit ng technology, hindi tayo pare-pareho nung pumasok sa sa pandemic, no? May iba mga proficient sa paggamit ng technology, may iba hindi. Pero yun nga, sabi ni Miss Rita, the struggle is in itself essential for learning ko. So, let's embrace that struggle. Okay? Siguro Miss Rita, no, add ko lang, siguro lagi natin i-remind na sa sarili natin na as we embrace it, more important yung sinabi ni Miss Rita kanina, no, let's act on it. Okay, so let's do something about it. Kasi hindi pwedeng puro struggles lang tayo, for example, or baka depression po ang ating abutin. Pag embrace po tayo ng embrace ng struggles pero wala po tayong ginagawa. It's the same with our students. Okay? Let them struggle. Miss Rita, ito yung isa sa concerns ng mga teachers natin, no? Yung dahil natatakot ang mga parents na mag-struggle or mag-commit ng mistakes ang mga anak nila, sila na po ang magiging first honors dahil sila po ang gumagawa ng mga
Totoo yan.
mga estudyante nila. So, it's actually one of the questions kanina, no? So, how do we address that, Miss Rita, no? Yung where's the problem? Bakit may ganun tendency yung mga students? At saka yung mga
There
cultural
are many
or
ways to address that. One is to educate the parents at the beginning of the school year. And then the next one is systemic. We have to change our grading system and our awards. The less we have of the awards, the better, actually, because the way we're awarding is not for specific things. The more we can give them awards for little things that they achieve, the better, instead of a big award that many times the student didn't aim for and doesn't want. It's the parents that want it. And so well, that's a bigger discussion, and not it's ideal, but hard to do, because well, I guess awards is also a way of recognizing achievement of students. So that one is just like an ideal solution. But the other one is to start doing things like check your learning purpose, write your learning purpose, and have your students do the checkbox. And until the parents know that yun ang kailangan asikasuhin, can the student do the checkbox on their own?
Correct, correct. Ayan. Nape-pressure kasi yung mga magulang.
Yes, yung pressure nyo. Pero siguro ano rin, precisely this is where the GRR actually also comes in.
Yes.
Making sure that our units are properly scaffolded. Okay? Kasi alam ng teachers, no, hindi naman lagi natin sinasabi na may mali sa ginagawa natin. Kaya lang, kailangan din maging reflective tayo kasi baka naman yung mga modules natin nasa panic zone kagad. Okay? So,
Yes.
talagang mga students natin, pag nakita for example yung module at natakot sila dahil hindi naka-scaffold yung mga tasks, ang lalaki ng mga tasks, then ang tendency talaga nun, nanay, mommy, please help us right away. Wala na
Yes.
kanya, no? Hindi na magre-reflect yung students na what can I do? Ang
Tapos pati yung parents na pe-pressure kasi naku, hindi ko ito masagot. Tatawag sa kapatid, sa tiyo, sa kapitbahay. Kaya mo ba itong, abogado ka, kaya mo ba itong gawin?
and it becomes a cycle. It becomes a culture. Okay? Kahit next time, magbigay na tayo ng module na scaffolded or madali na, ganun na rin yung tendency ng students. So, we really have to build it, no? It's a cultural approach by our students. Okay? Kaya nga po sabi ko sa inyo teachers, napakahalaga nitong topic ni Miss Rita ngayon, itong GRR na to. Kasi more than just unit designing, it's actually building that culture of independent learning na properly done. Okay? Hindi po by concept na yung sasabi ni Miss Rita kanina no, na alam naman natin kung anong independent learning, no? Pero are we approaching it the correct way? So baka yun yung mas kailangan natin pagtunan. That's why we presented to you this GRR today. Or Miss Rita presented pala po. No? So yan.
Alam niyo po, Miss Rita and Sir Franco, Sir Jello, if I may just interject. Actually, nagkaroon bigla ako ng webinar idea. Baka we can have it one time or I can suggest it to my school. Baka that's a good framework for a parenting seminar. Parang parenting seminar na GRR. Para sila mismo, alam nila how to gradually, bitawan yung mga anak nila, when to return, how much to So yeah, natin yan. Let's cook that up.
No,
Ako po, Miss Rita, I have a question po. I know we spent a great deal of time giving tips, or ensuring na nobody is left behind. Paano naman po yung mga the advanced ones? What can we do so that kunyari in a modular approach, in-ensure mo na talagang naka-chunk yung mga mo, which may most probably bore some of the more advanced students. Ano pong tips kaya? What can we do para matuloy yung kanilang interest in learning?
Okay. Again, teacher intuition ang magiging basehan nito finally, okay? But there are two areas you can work on. One is the learning purpose. You can add a learning purpose for those people, okay? So that they have other things, or you can change the verb. So yung explain, pwede mong gawing explain and give examples, or so there, doon sa purpose. The second is lessen the scaffolding for those people. You can give them more difficult graphic organizer, or you can give them less of the examples and just have them do it. So you can do it either in the guided instruction or in the purpose.
Hmm. So, Miss Rita, bigla ko lang po naisip, would you suggest something like, yung parang naalala ko po yung mga books when I was young na, ano yan? Yung create your own ending. Na,
Yes, that's
for
nice.
example, if you fully understood this lesson, you may proceed to ganyan. Otherwise, continue. Ayan.
Yes. So the usual default is go na to the next lesson.
Yes, yes.
But yours is actually no, increase na lang yung level of difficulty or higher level of thinking, and your suggestion is very good because that gets them to a higher level of thinking. That's create in the blooms. That's the highest. Create your own ending.
Thank you. May mga tanong pa po ba tayo, mga kaagapay? Again, we're very, very thankful to the participants of the chat group kasi hindi lang mga tanong, pati mga sagot, mga suggestions, brilliant ideas. Very, very thankful po kami.
Sir Jambi, so far, no, walang masyadong questions pero more on mga insights. So, napakadaming insights, no?
Magagandang insights dyan, ha? I hope you're reading it, viewers, because you can learn a lot.
Yeah, tsaka wag po kayo mahiya maglagay ng insights nyo kasi pati po yan nare-record when sa YouTube video nare-record po yan. So bukod sa video today, pwede rin po nating balikan yung exchanges of ideas.
Siguro Sir Jambi, ito may question on applicability of the GRR and siguro i-extend applicability.
Yes. It can apply to anything. It can apply to beyond tertiary, like as I said, my daughter did GRR to me she didn't succeed too well, right? Maybe I'm not a good student with how to use tech. But really, whatever, if it's like you can't just watch a YouTube video on how to cook a very complicated dish and then close the video and be asked to do that dish right away on your own and be graded for it. It shouldn't be done. It's the way all learning, any kind of learning at any age should occur.
I think not necessarily on our topic, Miss Rita, no, pero interesting lang yung question niya because it talks about roles of teachers.
Okay. Wait, by the way, for that previous question, the key there is the purpose. Yung purposes, some cannot be for kinder, some cannot be for tertiary, right? You know that as a teacher, depends on your curriculum. So the purposes is where the differentiation is. But once you have those purposes, you can use GRR for any age. Sorry, the next question was about roles.
Dominant role siguro ng teachers.
Yes, what a nice question. Yes, all of the above. All of the above.
And
yeah.
more.
And
And
more.
More.
You're now a designer of a new learning, a new kind of learning design that you were never trained for, and that nobody can really give you good advice about because all of us are new at it. And so it's very, very hard. Yeah. It was quite nice to point it out. When you see all of that, it's like, oo nga, no.
Grabe yung transition, Miss Rita, talaga to distance learning. Talagang it stretch yung capabilities ng mga. Although, alam ko, Miss Rita, no, siguro Sir Jambi and Sir Jo could also agree na before naman even the pandemic happened, mahirap naman talaga ang trabaho nating mga teachers, no. I think siguro lang ngayon mas na-emphasize at saka siguro the teachers then also have to yun siguro na-apply sa atin yung tinuro ni Miss Rita kanina na the pandemic also in a way stretch us out from our comfort zone. Kasi sobrang comfortable din tayo sa ating mga studies. For example, yung nga sinasabi nila Miss Rita na yung lagi nila sinasabi, kaya ko nang ituro tong subject ko nang nakapikit.
Correct.
Ibig sabihin, nasa comfort zone ka na po at hindi ka na masyadong Totoo, no?
Naghahanap na lang ng mga bagong gimmick.
Yes, and I think the pandemic sort of like push us into that zone of proximal development and learn about new tools, new about approaches, design, revisiting our unit designs. Example, for example, the GRR. It's not actually just for remote learning, as emphasized by Miss Rita, and is actually also applicable even in a face-to-face setup. Pero malamang nakalimutan na nating i-apply yan sa ating mga unit design. So the pandemic also sort of like the bright spots of the pandemic, no? Yan lagi ine-emphasize namin sa kaagapay na
Yan,
lagi
tama.
po may focus pa rin tong pandemic na 'to.
Kasi 'di ba,
Yan.
Sir Franco, I think whether or not our teachers have realized it, lahat tayo mas gumaling. Lahat tayo dumami yung skills ngayong because of the situation we find ourselves in.
Okay, siguro Sir Jambi, last two questions na lang, no? Kasi it's already 12 o'clock. We're supposed to actually end by 11:30. So, actually one last question siguro, Miss Rita, at na lang po siguro. Although it's on a different topic and it's actually one of the topics, future topics sa kaagapay teacher support. But what is your take on teachers learning design thinking? Kasi maganda pong application yan sa sa module designing.
You know very well that one of the, Sir Franco and Sir Gel know very well that one of the concepts closest to my heart is understanding by design. And actually, it's the by design part there that is something that I feel is extremely important. And nowadays, we have to take on to summarize all in one word the role of teachers nowadays. It's designer. And the design thinking process, well, one, for example, the first step is to be empathetic, with what is happening, with the context of your students or the community, etc., right? So dun pa lang you're already life coach, motivator, etc., right? Para mabasa ng maigi yung design brief, right? So, we're doing that. All of us are trying to do that now, read the situation very well, and then ideate for that. So we're really, whether or not you know the vocabulary and the steps, to be a good teacher, you really have to use design thinking nowadays. And your role as designer, including being strategic, as I said, about you're using a graphic organizer because you are scaffolding the thinking. That's you're being strategic. You're not just using it randomly. You're not just using it because you don't know what else to put in your lesson plan. So being strategic, that's being a designer. So this is a very important topic.
Yes, and soon we're going to have the teachers now. Pag-iisipin po natin how we can put that into our series. Okay? So, Sir Jello and Sir Jambi, because before tayo siguro paalam kay Miss Rita, I would like to first recognize her contribution for today's session. Okay, so let me just read this. Certificate of recognition is awarded to Mrs. Rita Atienza for sharing her expertise and for her contribution to the growth of teachers as a guest speaker to Kaagapay Teacher Support page. Okay? Awarded on January 16, 2021, signed by our administrators, myself, Sir Jambi, and Sir Jello. Again, Miss Rita, yung pong generosity nyo, sobrang overwhelming. We know that we
Maraming
can...
salamat po.
Yeah. We can't really repay what you've done for today, but we really appreciate your input for today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope I was able to help.
Indeed, ma'am. A lot. Okay, kahit kami po tatlo ay sobrang madami po na ito. So maraming salamat po, Miss Rita. And we wish you luck din po sa dami po ng advocacies nyo at saka kailangan ding trabaho.
Kayo rin, good luck. This is so good what you're doing. Good luck.
Maraming salamat, ma'am. We are inspired by you, ma'am, to continue these things. Okay? And again, Miss Rita, last ko na lang, lahat po ng mga natutunan namin sa inyo na i-share din po namin dito, no? Yung sa PBL natin, design thinking, etc. ito na po, we're now cascading all the things that we've learned from you to other teachers. Okay, so again, maraming salamat po. And have a good day po, Miss Rita. Okay, Sir Jambi, and Sir Jello. Okay, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
ano, again, no, kami ni Sir Jello, ano na kami, may accustomed na kami kay Miss Rita. That's why, Sir Jambi, pag napansin mo medyo chill lang namin kausap si Miss Rita kasi the relationship really runs deep, no?
May ganun din naman kami sa ano. We
Yes,
have our own, Rita Atienza sa school namin.
connect yung version nyo ng Rita sa
Yun.
maliit. Pero
Fingers
anyway,
crossed.
ang dami, no, sobrang loaded nung session natin for today. And I hope our teachers actually learned, dapat, no, sana definitely learned a lot from our session for today. And also, Sir Jambi, Sir Jello, let's recognize yung mga teachers natin who have been constantly contributing insights. And yun nga, laging sinasabi ni Sir Jambi, may separate webinar dun sa live chat natin. No?
Correct, di ba? Kahit yun lang yung subaybayan mo. Marami kang matututunan.
Yes, indeed, no. Para sa mga teachers natin. So, since 12 o'clock na, Sir Jambi and Sir Jello, bigyan na lang tayo ng konting reminders for our teachers. Okay? And yan. Okay? So, again, evaluation link will be given in a moment. Okay? After answering the evaluation, your certificates will be sent to you by email in 5 to 7 days. No? We're a little bit strict na on that 5 to 7 days, okay, para mas ma-manage natin yung ating sending of certificates, okay? And so please do, I will be informing you. Please follow us, okay? Our Facebook page. Doon po sa mga hindi pa nagpa-follow sa Facebook page namin, please stay updated and follow www.facebook.com/kaagapay.teachersupport page for updates, no? Kasi lang po kami nagpo-post ng lahat ng materials namin, okay? And we'll be asking our speaker for the presentation. If she grants permission to share it, we will be sharing it. And you should be able to see it in our, let me edit that para mas makita po ng teachers natin. You can see it from our website. Okay. Sorry, si Jello, natakpan ka, no? access.ed.ph. We will also post this in KTS page. Okay, so please, we will inform you with that. Okay, so yun. Sir Jello and Sir Jambi, last few words siguro, or like message to our teachers.
Ako na lang muna. Again, thank you very much to Miss Rita. Napakalaking bagay nung inilaan niyang oras para sa atin. And alam niyo, Sir Franco, Sir Jello, kanina ko lang naisip, whenever we ask pala speakers to give their or share their insights to our teachers, bigla ko naisip kanina na hindi lang pala basta yung nalalaman nila, yung hinihingi natin sa kanila. We are literally asking them to let us into their homes.
Yes, totoo.
Diba? Kasi parang ini-invade mo talaga yung bahay nila. Makikita mo yung kahit man lang yung simpleng background nila, and for that, very thankful to Miss Rita. Thank you na rin sa lahat ng mga naging speakers natin before. Ngayon ko lang biglang it hit me all of a sudden na, nga, no, pumapasok tayo sa mga bahay nila. So, thank you very much po.
Indeed, no. Siguro sundan ko na. Last ka na, Sir Jello, kasi may order tayo dun. Gusto ko sundan yung sinabi ni Sir Jambi, no. Aside from that, Sir Jambi, we haven't realized yet, no, yung pag lumalapit tayo sa mga speakers natin, we haven't got a no yet. So far, no. Sana hindi, no? Sana walang mangyari ganun. Pero one thing that I realized is that all throughout our advocacy, no, tayong tatlo, is that we had an immense support, okay? At dahil nakikita ng mga speakers natin, and Sir Jambi and Sir Jello, no? At alam na si Sir Jello, si Sir Jambi naman, alam din niya. Si Miss Rita is not like anybody else. She's like a foundation in terms of like training teachers all over the country. When we're thinking about, for example, understanding by design, design thinking, project-based learning, Miss Rita is a person that you go to in terms for consultation. Di ba? Yun yung natin. And yet, no, itong mga tao na to, despite of their achievements, despite of their busy schedule, decided to spend their time with our teachers. Okay? Kasi nga nakita nila yung need, and our teachers, no, and again, thank you for our teachers for not disappointing our speaker, no, yung pinamis ko na interaction, talagang na-overwhelmed din si Miss Rita in terms of your participation, teachers, no. So yun, so hope we continue and we pray that more generous people would share to us, okay, yun na nga, yung buhay nila, yung life nila, and their expertise on the field. And upcoming pa, Sir Jello and Sir Jambi, no,
Bahay nila.
yes, we have 2 more excellent, no, heavyweights speakers on our next Saturdays on January 23 and January 30. We're going to have a talk on assessments. Kailangan. Assessments on virtual learning environment by Dr. Cornelia Soto from Ateneo de Manila University. And then we're going to have a talk on action research by Dr. Feliz Yeban from Philippine Normal University. Mga institutions
Wow.
in education to. So,
Sakaling matapos ko na yung ano ko, yung MA ko.
Sir Jambi, sign na to. Sir, yun, Sir Jello, take it away.
Yan. Sige pa. So, ako, susundan ko lang rin si Sir Jambi, si Sir Franco. Sabi nga ni Sir Franco, inisip pa lang namin noon nung we're starting with giving webinars. Sabi namin, hopefully matatap namin yung mga big names, kumbaga, mga talaga institution in terms of different facet, different factors in education, and one of them is Miss Rita. Kasi nga we've been trained by Miss Rita Atienza talaga every now and then talaga. Parang every summer kasama na talaga yan. Nandiyan si Miss Rita sa amin. And even within the school year, nandiyan pa rin. And so, we are really, really happy to have her. And tulad nga ng sabi ni Sir Franco, hopefully the next webinars that we'll be having, the next speakers that we'll be having, and for the future, not only for January, will be nung mga taong talaga makakatulong sa atin. So, siguro ako ay susundan ko lang nung sinabi rin ni Miss Rita with regards to the gradual release zone, to the GR. Hindi lang siya for students actually. Isa sa mga realization ko, it's also for teachers. It's also for parents. It's everyone that is in the education system. Yes, struggle is real, mahirap. Parang nung inisip ko nga rin habang narakinig ako, Miss Rita, even though the way we start in Kaagapay, it's not easy. It's a struggle. We have to learn so many things. But eventually, we are learning. And hopefully, yun nga, this particular gradual release, ito nung isa sa mga we're looking forward. I think niluluto na rin to nung hindi lang kami, hindi lang mga speakers natin, pero next time, yung mga teachers naman natin, ang mga mag-share ng kanilang expertise and knowledge. And this is something that we'll look forward to learn more and to engage ourselves more to better discussions, more interactions together. So, maraming salamat sa lahat. And yon, Sir Franco.
So yan, okay. So maraming salamat, teachers. Your evaluation link is already on the screen. You may now start your evaluation. Please take note that the evaluation will be open until Monday, 8 p.m. Okay, para po mabigyan kayo ng time. Alam po natin, gaano tayo ka-busy. By the way, congratulations mga teachers. Kakasubmit lang po ng mga grades ng mga teachers natin from the public school. I think grading submission nila last January 5 na. So congratulations po sa lahat ng mga nakapag-submit na. Sa mga nag-i-encode pa, yan, kayang-kaya po natin yan, igapang po natin. So have a nice day, teachers, and good luck for today. We'll see you on Thursday and Saturday for our next sessions. Bye po.